Alright, well, got another one here for you. I thought it might be fun to go over, and I mean fun in the most literal sense of the word. I thought it might be fun to go over how I clean my games when I'm getting them ready for sale or for the collection, which we will be doing a game room video soon. I've got some painting I need to finish before I feel not ashamed to show everybody um, the shelving units and things I've built, because while I'm decent at electronics, I am not a carpenter, so they're not the most beautiful things in the world, but functional. That's what we're after. Um, so, just like any time we're going to be working on a old Nintendo game, we have to start with the good old game bit. I found this particular model. It was on Amazon, I think, several years ago, and they've got a magnetic tip, so you don't lose the screw whenever you go to take it apart, and inevitably it rolls off the counter that you're working on, or down into the box that you're working on top of, like I am right now. I've got kids, can you tell? Another thing I like to do is I'll take and flip the lid over, throw the screws in there just to keep up with them. Alright, so we will check the battery to see if it still saves. This is not horrible. I've definitely cleaned up worse than this with just some straight 91% IPA. Which is what you should always start with anyway. So first things first, we'll get our 91% IPA on the end of a good old Q-tip. Not for the inside of your ears, folks. They're for the inside of video games. That's coming back pretty clean. So I'm not unhappy with that, but you can see there's a little bit of buildup coming off, and that's just from the pins and working back and forth, dust buildup, whatever is on there. But it can hinder the ability of the game to connect to the console if it's thick enough. Now, I've seen these cartridges with some goop on them. Sometimes it's green, sometimes it's brown, sometimes it's actually black or rusty. The rusty ones are real fun because there's nothing on here that should actually rust. So it makes you wonder where the rust came from to start with. So that's coming back pretty dirty. I'll run over it with the dry end just to get any of the excess off. Yeah, it's still coming back dirty. Now, my method is not based in any, like science or, it's just a culmination of what I've learned over the years. I've been collecting pretty seriously since like 2010, I guess. I kind of came in late, but even when I was a kid, I used to keep Q-tips and IPA around just to clean up my NES games. But what I do is I will take, this is what's left of my eraser. This is just a regular school eraser. And I'll start with that for my first polish. And then I come back with this. And this is a polymer eraser. And it's just, you can feel the difference in the texture of these two things. This one feels like, you can feel the raised areas, kind of like, I don't know, a cat's tongue. And then this one's really smooth, like a finished edge on some plastic or something. So it's just the same principle as like sanding on, if you're familiar with body work or paint work on a vehicle. Same principle. You start with a heavier grit and then you move down to the lighter grit. So I'll just take and polish this a little bit, and it will put some residue on, but you're really polishing these contacts up nicely. And this used to be like the size of my thumb. It was a full-size eraser. So but I like to get on each pin, especially at the end, because if you just go back and forth like that, you'll get most of it, but you won't ever get the ones on the end because you're tendency is to come up off of it. And I promise, if we start getting some views or whatever on this channel, I will get a better camera. But for now, it's just my cell phone. So, like, share, and subscribe, or deal with crappy quality. Alright, so you can kind of see it's rough. I mean, it almost looks like we went backwards, but the end result's worth it, I promise. So, flip it over to the back side, and you don't want to put too much pressure on your internals on the board. It's like that little capacitor might not snap off, but you'll bend it, and these things are brittle anyway. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of wedge my fingers underneath like that and work back and forth on this. And again, this one wasn't the dirtiest thing I've ever seen. I have gone so far as to like take a Mr. Clean magic eraser to the pens that's dry or has a little bit of IPA on it, and just ever so slightly, just very quickly and carefully go back and forth on the contacts. There is a coating, so this brass coating on the outside is a protective layer. It will corrode, but not like at the rate as, say, the copper underneath will. At least that's the case on the old Nintendo games. I have actually sanded a couple of these down with rough grit, and I use those for restoring pins. So you get I've got a coarse cut this way with the sanding grit, so that it pulls the uneven edges and crap off of the 72 pin and the is it a 68 pin on the Super Nintendo? Whenever you run it back and forth inside the game. Of course, you soak it down with a little bit of IPA as well, and it really gets the insides of the consoles clean, and if you've got good pins, you don't have to replace them. Alright, so, same process, go back with the polymer eraser, and you can start to see it come back now. I'm trying to not put my hand all up in the lens here, but there's just not really any way around it, I don't think. Alright, so you can kind of see that the shiny's coming back. We like shiny things. Alright. And this trick, I seem to remember way back when I first started this, I watched somebody do a video, and they were using like the pencil, like an actual eraser on the end of a pencil, and doing this move. But I took some time and really worked to try to find these erasers that were a little finer, and I mean, you get a darn good result out of that. I mean, it's shiny, and I'm still going to go over it again with IPA. And this is what you want. I mean, you just want it to be good and reflective. You want it to be relatively even. I mean, you're going to have a little bit of discoloration where the pins are worn. You can see that there, but I mean, you do that on the first two plays of the game whenever you put it in the system. It's just how it is. It doesn't take long to rip off a little bit of that coating. But as long as you're not seeing copper, the contacts are still good. And I will test the battery. I could voltage test it, but I'll probably just put it in the system and see if it works. This particular one is a double for me, and the copy that I have is better. So I'm going to keep my copy, and I'll probably just send this one on down the road. And when I'm selling them, I don't often replace the battery, and it's not a cheap thing. It's because I'm not sure if the person that's buying it will see it as being devalued because it's got a replacement battery in it, or if it will throw up a red flag and make them think that it's some sort of reproduction. So I prefer to leave it like this. Now, if it doesn't work, doesn't save, I'll replace that battery just like we did in the last video. With the exception of, I'm not going to be so careful as to keep voltage through the board the whole time, because there's no sentimental reason to keep those saves on there. These These aren't the games that I had when I was a kid, like that last one was. But I got a brand new Q-tip with a little bit of IPA on it. And we're just going to run over that dude. And you can see it come back. I'm probably about 3, 4, maybe even 5 years too late to this party to really go anywhere with this sort of thing on YouTube. But, I mean, I'm just starting out with this YouTube mess. And I really, again, I think I've said it in every video. I'm not like, I don't have any delusions of YouTube grandeur or anything. It's just one of those deals that I feel like I can share a little bit of knowledge. Maybe it'll get into the hands of somebody that needs to see it or that's looking for it, and that's fine. Again, I'm not any electronics specialist or educated in this specifically, but I know what's worked for me, and that's all I'm trying to share with you guys. All right, so you can see that's pretty much about as good as you're going to get one. Now, some folks will say, well, use a little bit of Brazo on there, or you can go ahead and use a buffing wheel on a Dremel. And I've seen people do that. Oh, I got one little... What is that? Just a little distortion. I've seen people do the buffing wheel on a Dremel. And I've also seen them tear a contact clean off the board. So this is good enough to make a good connection, and that's fine with me. So that's my method for cleaning contacts on these games. And you don't have to do this with every single one of them, but it really gets them extra clean. And you can always go back with some canned air or compressed air, whatever you want to use to get all the little particles of eraser and stuff off of the cartridge after you're done. This works for me. Might not work for you, but it's served me well for the last 10-12 years. So if you have any questions, please hit me with them down below. Also, don't forget to share the video if you like it. Certainly, we're going to be looking at getting some better camera equipment if this continues to be a thing. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.